Today we're talking about stage 3 of labor. So if you did not see stage 1 or stage 2, check those out. They're so important for you to know exactly what to do in early labor, active labor, and transition, how to push, what to expect, what positions to push in. All that stuff is in each of those videos. So take a look at those. They are a little bit long, but they have a lot of really good information in them. It's basically free childbirth education. So go check it out. So stage 3 is pretty short. It's not a ton of stuff that you need to know, but you do need to know what to look for if something were to not be normal, what to expect, because just because you delivered your baby doesn't mean that things are done. You still have one more step, which is to deliver the placenta. So I want to talk to y'all about what that looks like so that you can know what to expect and make some really informed decisions before you get to the hospital or birth center or wherever you are giving birth. So let's get started. What happens after you have your baby? So your baby is born and you're chest to chest, you're skin to skin. You might have started breastfeeding already and it's like, you did it. Yes, yes, yes. Congratulations, mama. You did it. You delivered your baby. But the placenta is still in your body, okay? Because as you know, your baby gets all of his or her nutrients, all of his food, water, all of the things that he or she needs to stay alive, right? That all comes through your placenta, through the umbilical cord to the baby. That is their lifeline. It has been their lifeline. So when the baby is delivered and is on your chest, the umbilical cord is still there. Y'all know this because you probably are thinking, oh my God, dad's gonna cut the umbilical cord. It's gonna be so special. Yes, but the placenta does not come out at the same time that you deliver your baby. The placenta is still inside of your body attached to your uterine wall, okay? Basically, it's stuck there because it doesn't float everywhere in your body while you're pregnant. It has to stay in one place. Otherwise, you would be running into some other complications in pregnancy. But if you made it to the delivery room and you delivered your baby vaginally, you probably, weren't even concerned about other things if your placenta was not attached to your uterine wall. So what happens now? You delivered your baby, contractions still happen. So just because you had your baby doesn't mean that like everything stops and your body stops and it's like, great, let's go back to normal. No, that's not what happens. What happens is you'll still have contractions. They'll be mild. They will not be intense. They won't be anything like they were when you were giving birth, but you will be having contractions. And the reason that you're having contractions is because your uterus has to contract so that it can get back to its normal size. And your uterus also has to contract so it can help you push out this placenta, okay? There are a few different ways that healthcare providers might recommend doing it. So just think about it, research these two different options to see which one would be best suited for you. The first one is with a shot of Pitocin. So Pitocin, if you are induced, you are given Pitocin. But they also use Pitocin when you are delivering your placenta because it can help bring on some of those uterine contractions again. And it can also help prevent hemorrhaging or bleeding, okay? But it is a medication, so you have to, look into that to see, is that the best fit for you? Do you want that to happen? It will help you contract, or your uterus to contract, and then it'll help you push out the placenta. It's nothing like pushing out a baby, but you already did that, so you know what that feels like. The other way is allowing it to happen a little bit more naturally. Because you might get Pitocin, or if you get Pitocin, those uterine contractions are gonna be stimulated from that medication. On the flip side, how do we get our uterus to contract if we don't use Pitocin? So breastfeeding, if you are breastfeeding causes your uterus to contract. It is naturally releasing oxytocin, that love hormone, because you and your baby are skin to skin, you're breastfeeding, you're building and connecting through this really intimate bond. And so that love hormone is going off and it's causing your uterus to contract, which will naturally help your placenta detach from the uterine wall, which is what we're looking for. Once the placenta detaches from the uterine wall, there will be a little bit of bleeding, because if you're thinking about a scab, right? If you peel a scab off of your hand or your arm, there will be bleeding involved. Well, your placenta is a very large organ and it is connected to your uterus, and it can be the size of a dinner plate. So if you think about like this whole dinner plate in your body, and you pull a scab off that's this large, you can expect some bleeding to happen, right? Not an excess bleeding, because that would be considered hemorrhaging, but your placenta is very large. And so once it detaches from the uterine wall, that cues your midwives or your doctor to say, okay, the placenta might be ready to be delivered. It does not have to be delivered immediately after your baby is delivered. You can wait 5 to 30 minutes or so, but you'll want to talk to your healthcare provider about that and what their process is. But nonetheless, you start to see and feel those contractions. And when your body can naturally push this out. Some women have said, like, I coughed because my uterus was already contracting because I was breastfeeding, and I just like coughed and it came out, right? Other women have to, actually kind of bear down or push this placenta out. Either way, our placenta is on its way out, and that's the last stage of labor. What is to be expected after the placenta comes out? One, think about delayed cord clamping, okay? If you are considering delayed cord clamping, which is waiting until your placenta stops pulsating, or just waiting a couple minutes, whatever is most comfortable for you, you'll want to note that in your birth plan and talk to your healthcare provider about that, because it has a ton of benefits for the baby. This has been their lifeline for the past 9 months. So if you want to allow them to get that last amount of iron and oxygen and blood, all the nutrients that are left in the placenta, because you've worked really hard, mommy, you don't want those to go to waste. So allowing that delayed cord clamping, that could literally be 60 seconds, 90 seconds, up to a couple of minutes afterwards, and just allowing that placenta to stop pulsating before you cut the cord. So thinking about delayed cord clamping, that is an option. The other option is, and you can do both of these. The other option is placenta encapsulation. So it may sound kind of gross. It was kind of weird to me when I first heard about it, but it's literally the most amazing thing ever. So as long as your placenta is healthy, you have the option of encapsulating it, meaning putting it into pills and consuming it after you go home. Now, this is a process, and you do have to make this decision well before you go into labor, but there's so many benefits to placenta encapsulation, and I would highly recommend you look that up for yourself to see if it's something that you're interested in. But just speaking from my own experience, I didn't really know much about placenta encapsulation my first time around, so that wasn't really an option, and I also thought it was kind of gross, so I didn't even consider or do any research on it. But the second time around, I learned a little bit more about the benefits, which are huge if you are nervous or fearful of just like a hormonal imbalance or postpartum depression. With my first, I had an emergency C-section, and postpartum depression hit me hard. I didn't really know what to expect, but I was trying to figure out how to become a mama. I didn't know why my baby was crying. I didn't know if he had colic. I was having trouble latching. It was just a whole 9 yards. And so if you put that on top of the fact that at day 5, your hormones are literally gonna drop and cause you to experience some baby blues. If you don't have anything to support that, or you don't have the proper support system to work through some of those baby blues, you can easily and quickly spiral into postpartum depression, because your hormones are like, whoa, by day 5, they're like, whoa, we don't have a baby in here anymore. We don't have to keep doing all this work. So they just dip, right? When you get your placenta encapsulated, what that does is it kind of helps with the hormonal balance. So you won't have this drastic dip. You will have, ebbs and flows of your hormones, but it's not going to be this huge dip to where you're going to feel like, oh my God, what's happening, and spiral into this postpartum depression. You still have to do things, of course, to make sure that you have the support and make sure you're doing the right things to, take care of yourself. But the placenta encapsulation and those pills really help. I felt my dip a little bit after I was done with them, but by that point, it had been 3 months at least. So by that point, I knew, kind of how to work through some of my emotions. So what are you going through when this stage 3 happens, right? You're obviously on cloud 9 because you had your baby, and it's so exciting, and oh my gosh, my baby's here, and everything in the world just stops. So you're probably feeling that way. If you're in the hospital and you got induced, you're probably really, really hungry. You're going to be hungry regardless, but you're probably going to be really hungry if you were induced because you haven't been able to eat for the last 12, 18, 20 hours or however long you've been in labor. So this is the time to get some food if they allow you to. If you had a C-section, you do have to wait a little bit longer. But you're also going to want to make sure that you're hydrating. So if you can't stomach food, bone broth is like really amazing to rehydrate you. Coconut water, I drank so much coconut water in labor, it's embarrassing, but it just helped keep me hydrated. Some of the things that you can do to kind of help that natural progression of your placenta being delivered, if you don't want to go with the, Pitocin route, is breastfeeding. So breastfeeding is going to naturally allow that oxytocin to flow and your uterus to contract. So really consider breastfeeding, as a way of allowing your uterus to contract. You'll also have the option of your doctor, healthcare provider, midwife massaging on your uterus, because we want that uterus to firm up. The reason that you'll still feel contractions after you have your baby, for obviously delivering your placenta as well as when you go home, is because your uterus has to contract so it can go back to its pre-pregnancy size, okay? That's gonna be a normal thing. When you breastfeed, you'll probably feel contractions. When you go home, you'll still feel contractions, and that's normal just as long as you don't see, a ton of bleeding, okay? And at that point, that's when you need to really call your doctor and figure out what's going on. Make sure you have not hemorrhaged. But you're gonna be on cloud 9 and you're going to just be like, oh my God, everything is amazing. But I do need to eat, because you do need to eat. You need to replenish all of the calories and the nutrients that you lost in the process of labor. What can your partner be doing at this time? Your partner can be supporting you. If for whatever reason, God forbid, you have to go to the OR or you have to be checked and taken away from your baby, partner can stay with baby skin to skin. And that's gonna be really good for baby, because that will allow them to maintain their body temperature, heart rate, and just have that connection and that bond with the people that they're going to be spending the most time with. So trying to stick with your baby, either you or your partner sticking with your baby the entire time. But if you guys are all together, partner needs to be congratulating you, celebrating you, loving on you, because you just did the most amazing thing, okay? I do want to call out some signs or some red flags just to make sure that you are not confusing something that is actually serious with what you think is normal or being scared to speak up. So you have to advocate for yourself, especially Black mamas, because if you have not seen any of my posts, I'm very passionate about the fact that Black mamas are dying 4 times more in childbirth than white mamas. And it is simply because of the color of our skin. It has nothing to do with education, it has nothing to do with income, it has nothing to do with any of those factors. It is just simply the color of our skin. And so we have to do a little bit more to advocate for ourselves and know what our rights are in order to do that. And so what I want to call out in this case is during stage 3, hemorrhaging can happen if you're not careful and you don't pick up those signs. So one of the signs, red flags that this, situation is not normal, is if you're having a lot of bleeding. Like if you're filling up some pads, or if you had a catheter and your catheter has blood in it, and you just cannot stop this bleeding and doctors haven't picked up on that, then that is a sign that you could be have hemorrhaging, okay? You need to reach out to whoever is in the immediate area, right? Because at this point, you'll probably still be at the hospital or at the birth center. Make sure that they know that. Do not allow that to be a, oh, we'll get to it when we can situation. That is an immediate need, and you need to make sure that everything is okay, that you are not hemorrhaging and bleeding out, okay? The other thing is if you start to feel dizzy, lightheaded, your blood pressure, heart rate is starting to drop, that is also a sign that you could be hemorrhaging. So that is also a sign for you to call the doctor, call whoever right away to check on you to make sure that there is nothing that is serious and needs to be taken care of. The other thing is just making sure that your uterus is still contracting and that the Pitocin or whatever medication you might have taken has not impacted you or caused you to have stronger contractions than you need. So these are some of the things that you should be taking a look at. If partner notices that mama is like a little bit out of it or woozy, it could be the drugs if she had them, but it also could be something more serious. And so it's really important that y'all reach out to your doctors, your healthcare providers immediately to make sure that that is taken care of. I hope this was helpful. Happy baby, happy laboring, happy birth.